Bartokomous. Philo, my fifth cousin 3 times removed, is this.
It wasn't just a feel-good buddy sitcom. It was a show where the stars despised each other. The network tried to cancel it 4 times, and the immigrant character was based on someone who didn't exist. Behind the dance of joy and Balki's broken English, Perfect Strangers was held together by spite, luck, and one actor's iron grip on creative control. These are 20 secrets about Perfect Strangers hidden for decades. And the bonus? The apartment building they lived in was cursed by Hollywood history. Number 20. Bronson Pinchot and Mark Lynn Baker hated each other.
I look everywhere for you.
I forgot how romantic it could be.
On screen, Balki and Larry were inseparable best friends, whose bond drove every episode. Off screen, Bronson Pinchot and Mark Lynn Baker couldn't stand being in the same room. The animosity started during the pilot when Pinchot's improvisational style clashed with Lynn Baker's trained theater approach. Lynn Baker expected rehearsed, precise performances, while Pinchot changed dialogue and blocking spontaneously, forcing his co-star to constantly adjust. This fundamental difference in working methods created resentment that grew into genuine hatred. Between takes, they wouldn't speak except when absolutely necessary. They ate lunch separately, arrived at different times, and avoided any interaction beyond what the script required. Cast members from later seasons reported the tension was so thick you could feel it walking onto set. What made their mutual dislike remarkable was how completely it disappeared on camera, both professional enough to create believable friendship while privately despising each other. Number 19. ABC tried to cancel the show 4 separate times.
You know, Balki, if I had it to do all over again.
Perfect Strangers survived, despite ABC repeatedly attempting to kill it. The show premiered in spring 1986 as a mid-season replacement with low expectations and minimal promotion. When ratings were mediocre, ABC canceled it after the first season. Fan outcry convinced the network to reverse the decision and bring it back. This pattern repeated 3 more times over 8 seasons, with ABC canceling or threatening cancellation only to reverse course when viewer response demonstrated the show's loyal following. The network never understood Perfect Strangers' appeal, viewing it as a lowbrow comedy that didn't fit their desired brand. Executives were embarrassed by the show's silliness and immigrant humor, preferring more sophisticated programming. But Perfect Strangers consistently outperformed expectations in its time slots, particularly with family audiences that advertisers valued. Each cancellation attempt created existential dread among cast and crew who never knew if they'd return. The constant uncertainty affected morale and made long-term planning impossible, contributing to creative inconsistency across seasons. Number 18. Mypos didn't exist until after the pilot.
You come to take Balki back to America.
Well,
Of course not, don't be ridiculous.
Balki's homeland of Mypos, central to his character and countless storylines, wasn't in the original pilot. The pilot simply identified Balki as a generic immigrant from an unspecified Mediterranean country. After the pilot tested well, producers developed Balki's backstory and invented Mypos as a fictional island nation, creating its customs, language, and culture from scratch. Writers borrowed randomly from Greek, Turkish, and Eastern European cultures, creating a nonsensical mashup that bore no resemblance to any real place. The Myposian language Balki occasionally spoke was gibberish, with no consistent grammar or vocabulary. Bronson Pinchot improvised most of it, making up sounds that seemed foreign without actually meaning anything. This cultural fabrication became controversial as the show progressed, with critics arguing that Balki's portrayal reinforced negative stereotypes about immigrants as naive, backward, and intellectually inferior. Defenders claimed the show celebrated immigrants and showed Balki succeeding through hard work and optimism. But the controversy revealed how Perfect Strangers trafficked in stereotypes while claiming to subvert them. Number 17. Mark Lynn Baker demanded equal billing and nearly killed the show. After season 1, Mark Lynn Baker became furious that Bronson Pinchot received top billing despite Larry being equally central to the show. Lynn Baker demanded equal billing with both names appearing simultaneously rather than Pinchot's name appearing first. The dispute escalated into a contract negotiation nightmare that threatened to end Perfect Strangers before season 2. ABC sided with Pinchot initially, viewing him as the breakout star, whose performance drove the show's identity. But Lynn Baker refused to back down, threatening to quit if not given equal recognition. After months of negotiation, a compromise was reached where both names appeared together with no clear hierarchy, alternating which name appeared on which side, depending on the episode. This satisfied neither actor, but prevented the show's destruction. The billing dispute poisoned an already difficult relationship, with Pinchot viewing Lynn Baker as jealous and ungrateful, while Lynn Baker felt disrespected and undervalued. The behind-the-scenes battle was never publicized, with both actors contractually forbidden from discussing it publicly. Number 16. Bronson Pinchot created Balki by mocking his acting teacher.
And a theater called me up and said, "We're doing this play," and they sent it to me.
You tricked Balki! You're damn right, I tricked Balki!
Balki Bartokomous wasn't based on research or observation of real immigrants. The character was Bronson Pinchot's cruel mockery of his Yale Drama School acting teacher, a Greek professor Pinchot had disliked. The exaggerated accent, the physical mannerisms, the naive enthusiasm, all of it was Pinchot doing an impression he developed to make classmates laugh at his teacher's expense. When auditioning for Perfect Strangers, Pinchot pulled out this character he'd created years earlier for mockery, and somehow it worked for television. He never told producers the character's origins, letting them believe he'd done serious research into immigrant experiences. The truth only emerged years later when a former classmate recognized the impression and revealed its mean-spirited origins. Pinchot defended himself by claiming the character had evolved beyond its original inspiration, that Balki had become something positive, regardless of how he started. But the revelation complicated Perfect Strangers' legacy, showing that its immigrant representation was rooted in mockery rather than respect or understanding. Number 15. The Dance of Joy was stolen from another show.
Come on, everybody, feel the beat! Put on your boogie!
Perfect Strangers' most iconic element, the Dance of Joy that Balki and Larry performed when celebrating good news, wasn't original. It was lifted almost entirely from a failed pilot that had aired years earlier on another network. That pilot featured characters doing a similar celebration dance, and one of Perfect Strangers' writers had worked on the failed show. Rather than create something new, he simply recycled the dance, assuming nobody would remember an obscure pilot that never became a series. The plagiarism was discovered when the original pilot's creator happened to see Perfect Strangers and immediately recognized his stolen creation. He considered legal action, but was advised that proving ownership of a simple dance would be difficult and expensive. Instead, he settled for a quiet payment from Miller Boyett Productions in exchange for not going public with the theft. The Dance of Joy that became synonymous with Perfect Strangers and generated merchandising revenue was essentially stolen intellectual property that the show's creators got away with through a combination of obscurity and strategic payoffs. Number 14. Rebecca Arthur was fired for getting pregnant.
Hi, Balki.
Hi, Marianne.
Rebecca Arthur played Mary Ann, one of the upstairs neighbors introduced in season 3. When Arthur became pregnant in real life, producers faced a decision about whether to write the pregnancy into the show. They chose instead to fire her, writing Mary Ann out completely, rather than dealing with a pregnant character they hadn't planned for. Arthur was devastated, having believed she had job security and a long-term role on a hit sitcom. The firing was legal but cruel, with producers showing no consideration for Arthur's circumstances or willingness to accommodate her pregnancy. They simply replaced her with a different actress, playing a different character, Lydia, as if Mary Ann had never existed. The incident was kept quiet, with Arthur signing a non-disclosure agreement as part of her severance. Years later, she discussed the firing in interviews, describing it as one of the most painful professional experiences of her career. The casual disposal of a pregnant actress revealed how little Perfect Strangers valued its supporting cast, treating them as interchangeable parts rather than valued contributors to the show's success. Number 13. The show was accused of racist stereotyping. Despite its positive portrayal of immigrant success, Perfect Strangers faced persistent criticism for reinforcing negative stereotypes about foreigners. Balki was portrayed as intellectually limited, culturally backward, and completely naive about American society in ways that critics argued promoted xenophobic attitudes. His broken English and misunderstanding of basic concepts played into stereotypes about immigrants as intellectually inferior to native-born Americans. Cultural advocacy groups complained that the show presented immigration as a process of foreigners learning to abandon their heritage and adopt American values, rather than celebrating cultural diversity. Balki's gradual Americanization was framed as progress, suggesting that being foreign was something to overcome. The show's creators defended their work by pointing to Balki's positive qualities and the show's anti-prejudice messages in specific episodes. But critics noted that good intentions didn't erase the fundamental problem of reducing an entire immigrant experience to comedy based on cultural misunderstanding and linguistic incompetence. The debate revealed tensions in 80s television about representation and whether shows trafficking in stereotypes could be redeemed by occasional socially conscious episodes. Number 12. Miller Boyett Productions controlled everything. Perfect Strangers was produced by Miller Boyett Productions, which also created Full House and Family Matters. The production company exercised iron control over every aspect of Perfect Strangers, often overruling network decisions and actor preferences. Tom Miller and Bob Boyett had earned enormous leverage through their track record of hits, allowing them to operate with unusual independence. They made casting decisions, approved scripts, controlled budgets, and shaped the show's direction with minimal network interference. This control had benefits, protecting Perfect Strangers from ABC's worst instincts and allowing creative consistency. But it also meant that actors had little input into their characters or storylines, creating frustration among cast members who felt their expertise was ignored. The producers' tight control extended to personal conduct, with morality clauses and behavior expectations that governed cast members' private lives. Violations could result in firing regardless of contractual protections. This controlling environment created anxiety and resentment, with cast members feeling like employees rather than collaborators in creating the show. Number 11. The Chicago setting was entirely fake.
Balki,
Yes.
we're not sinking.
Well,
Perfect Strangers was supposedly set in Chicago, with occasional establishing shots of the skyline and references to local landmarks. But the show was filmed entirely in Los Angeles with minimal effort to maintain the Chicago illusion. The apartment building exterior was in LA, interior sets were on Hollywood sound stages, and outdoor scenes were filmed on California streets that looked nothing like Chicago. Actors would reference Chicago weather while filming in California sunshine, creating absurd disconnects between dialogue and visible reality. The show made no effort to incorporate actual Chicago culture, landmarks, or characteristics beyond superficial mentions. It could have been set anywhere, with Chicago chosen seemingly at random and then ignored. This laziness frustrated Chicago residents, who noticed the completely inauthentic portrayal of their city. Local newspapers occasionally mocked the show's failure to represent Chicago in any meaningful way. But the producers didn't care because audiences outside Chicago either didn't notice or didn't mind the fakery. Perfect Strangers proved that television could claim any setting without actually depicting it, as long as the characters and stories worked. Number 10. Melanie Wilson was cast because she looked like Lynn Baker.
I'm afraid so. What are you doing here?
Melanie Wilson, who played Jennifer Lyons and eventually became Larry's wife, wasn't cast for chemistry or acting ability, but because she physically resembled Mark Lynn Baker enough that producers thought they'd make a believable couple. The casting directors specifically looked for actresses with similar coloring, facial structure, and height to Lynn Baker, operating on the outdated theory that couples should look related for audiences to accept their romance. Wilson was a model with limited acting experience, struggling initially with sitcom timing and comedic delivery, but she photographed well next to Lynn Baker, and that was apparently enough. The superficial casting created problems when Wilson and Lynn Baker had zero romantic chemistry on screen, their relationship feeling forced and obligatory rather than genuine. Writers tried to compensate by giving them cutesy dialogue and romantic storylines, but nothing could manufacture the spark that didn't exist naturally. Cast members noticed the lack of chemistry, with Bronson Pinchot reportedly making side comments about how Jennifer and Larry's scenes fell flat compared to his work with Lynn Baker. Wilson knew she'd been cast for her looks rather than her talent, and struggled with imposter syndrome throughout her time on the show. She worked hard to improve her acting, taking classes and studying comedy, but always felt she was fighting against the superficial reasoning that had gotten her hired. The decision to cast based on appearance rather than chemistry demonstrated how little thought went into Perfect Strangers' romantic storylines, which were always the show's weakest element, precisely because they'd been built on a foundation of physical resemblance, rather than genuine connection between performers. Number 9. The show's working title was ridiculous. Before settling on Perfect Strangers, the show went through dozens of terrible working titles that revealed how little confidence ABC had in the concept. Early titles included The Greenhorn, My Cousin Balki, American Dreamer, and most embarrassingly, The Foreigner and The Photographer. These titles were focus grouped extensively, with test audiences rejecting each one as either too offensive, too generic, or too confusing. The eventual title, Perfect Strangers, was chosen almost by default after everything else tested poorly, despite the phrase making no sense for a show about cousins who aren't strangers at all. The title was meant to suggest that Larry and Balki were perfect for each other, despite being different, but the irony was lost on most viewers who just found it confusing. Internally, producers and writers continued referring to the show by various working titles throughout the first season. Unable to agree on what to call it, scripts would list different titles, cast members would mention different names in interviews, and promotional materials were inconsistent. This identity crisis reflected deeper uncertainty about what the show was supposed to be, whether it was a culture clash comedy, a buddy sitcom, or something else entirely. The muddled branding contributed to the show's initial struggle to find an audience, with potential viewers unclear about the premise from the title alone. Only after the show established itself did Perfect Strangers become accepted, though many involved admitted it was never a great title, just the least objectionable option from a list of terrible alternatives. Number 8. Sam Gorpley was based on a real ABC executive.
I forgot to tell you that you're not getting a raise. Why not? Oh, nothing personal, Bartok.
My God, I'm going to die and I've never even been.
Sam Gorpley, the obnoxious Chicago Chronicle editor who tormented Larry, wasn't a fictional creation but a thinly veiled caricature of an ABC executive who'd given the producers constant grief. Sam Anderson played Gorpley with exaggerated nastiness that was apparently drawn from real interactions between Miller Boyett Productions and this executive who questioned every creative decision and made the producers' lives miserable. The character's name was even similar to the real executives, changed just enough to avoid obvious identification, but close enough that industry insiders recognized the target. Gorpley's most obnoxious characteristics, his petty tyranny, his joy in others' failures, his complete lack of self-awareness, were all reportedly based on real behavior from this executive. The producers essentially weaponized their sitcom to mock someone they couldn't directly confront, using comedy as revenge against corporate interference. The executive in question apparently never realized he was being parodied, or if he did, he never acknowledged it publicly. Cast and crew found the inside joke hilarious, with Sam Anderson occasionally exaggerating Gorpley's worst qualities, specifically to amuse producers who were channeling their frustration into the character. The subplot became a form of therapy, allowing the production team to publicly humiliate someone who'd humiliated them privately, turning their antagonist into a figure of mockery, watched by millions every week. Years later, when the real executive had left ABC, producers finally acknowledged the connection in interviews, though they still refused to name him directly, maintaining plausible deniability while making the inspiration obvious to anyone paying attention. Number 7. Bronson Pinchot rewrote his own dialogue constantly.
We can't bump the baby babka ditty. It's part and parcel of the point-by-point process of...
Bronson Pinchot treated scripts as suggestions rather than fixed text, rewriting his dialogue on the fly during filming without consulting writers or directors. His improvisational approach drove the writing staff crazy, as they'd labor over jokes and storylines only to watch Pinchot discard their work in favor of his own spontaneous ideas. Sometimes his changes improved scenes, his comedic instincts finding funnier alternatives to what was written. Other times, his improvisation derailed carefully constructed storylines or undermined jokes that depended on specific wording. Writers complained to producers about Pinchot's unauthorized changes, but Miller and Boyett sided with their star, arguing that his performance was what made the show work, and he should have creative freedom. This created a two-tiered system, where Pinchot could do whatever he wanted, while other actors had to follow scripts precisely, breeding resentment throughout the cast. Mark Lynn-Baker was particularly frustrated because Pinchot's improvisations forced him to adjust his own performance without preparation, making his job harder, while Pinchot got credit for being spontaneous and brilliant. The writers eventually stopped putting full effort into Balki's dialogue, knowing Pinchot would change it anyway, instead writing placeholder lines and letting him fill in the actual jokes during filming. This abdication of responsibility affected the show's quality, with Balki's scenes becoming hit or miss, depending on whether Pinchot's improvisation worked. When it worked, it was magic. When it didn't, there was no script backup to fall back on, because the writers had stopped trying. Number 6. The show almost had a completely different format.
Am I looking up Larry Appleton?
Larry Appleton, that's me. There is a problem.
Perfect Stranger's original pilot concept was dramatically different from what eventually aired. Initial plans called for an anthology format where Balki would live with a different cousin each season, moving around America and experiencing different regional cultures. Larry was supposed to be just the first season's character, with Balki moving to a southern cousin in season 2, a southwestern cousin in season 3, and so on. This format would have made Perfect Strangers a vehicle for exploring American diversity through Balki's innocent perspective, while allowing complete cast turnover between seasons. ABC executives loved this concept initially, seeing potential for freshness and reinvention that typical sitcoms couldn't achieve. But after the pilot tested well, specifically because of the Balki-Larry chemistry, the network got cold feet about changing the cast. They demanded that Lynn-Baker be kept permanently, and the anthology concept abandoned in favor of traditional sitcom format, following the same characters. Miller Boyett Productions reluctantly agreed, though they'd specifically designed the show around the anthology concept and had to scramble to develop long-term storylines for characters intended to last only one season. This explains why Perfect Strangers often felt aimless in later seasons, spinning wheels without clear direction. The show was being forced to extend a premise designed for one season across 8 seasons, creating narrative exhaustion that writers struggled to overcome. Cast members only learned about the original anthology plan years later, with several expressing relief they hadn't been part of a concept that would have made them expendable after one season. Number 5. Lise Cutter was fired for being too pretty.
Heart surgeon, not always being summoned to the White House like the congressman.
He's not always lugging that.
Lise Cutter played Susan Campbell, Jennifer's co-worker and friend, for 2 seasons before being abruptly fired. The official reason given was that her character wasn't working and needed to be written out. The real reason, revealed years later by production insiders, was that Melanie Wilson complained that Cutter was too attractive and made her look bad by comparison. Wilson had insecurity about her looks, despite being objectively beautiful, and she became convinced that viewers were comparing her unfavorably to Cutter, that men on set paid more attention to Cutter, that her own star power was being diminished by a more attractive supporting actress. Wilson apparently gave producers an ultimatum: fire Cutter, or she'd make life difficult for everyone. Miller Boyett Productions sided with their lead actress, callously dismissing Cutter and replacing her with a less conventionally attractive actress in a different role. Cutter was blindsided by the firing, given no real explanation, and left confused about what she'd done wrong. The truth emerged years later through crew members who'd witnessed Wilson's jealousy and the producer's capitulation to it. Cutter's career never recovered from the sudden firing, which came at a moment when she was gaining recognition and momentum. Being fired from a hit show with no clear reason damaged her reputation and made casting directors wary. The incident revealed the ugly reality that female actresses could be punished not for poor performance, but for being perceived as too attractive, threatening to more powerful but insecure co-stars. Number 4. The basement apartment set was haunted.
Ho, ho, ho. Balki closet. Oh, cousin, that's the saddest story I ever heard.
The soundstage where Perfect Strangers filmed had a dark history, and cast members reported numerous unexplained phenomena that created ongoing unease. The stage had previously been used for a 1950s noir film, where a stuntman had died during filming, falling from the rafters during a fight scene. Since then, Various productions on that stage reported strange occurrences, equipment malfunctioning inexplicably, cold spots in certain areas, shadows moving where no one was standing, and a general feeling of being watched. Perfect Strangers cast and crew experienced all of these phenomena, with several refusing to be alone on the set after hours. Bronson Pinchot was particularly affected, claiming to have seen a figure in period clothing standing in the apartment set after everyone had left. He refused to film late-night scenes alone, and insisted that crew members stay with him even during his solo shots. Mark Lynn-Baker dismissed the ghost stories as superstition, but even he admitted that the set had an uncomfortable atmosphere that intensified when production wrapped and the lights went down. Several crew members requested transfers to other shows, specifically to get away from the haunted stage. Production assistants would draw straws to determine who had to be the last person to leave, with the loser practically running out after turning off the lights. The haunting became part of Perfect Strangers lore, with cast members trading stories about strange experiences and warning new guest actors about the stage's history. Whether the phenomena were genuinely supernatural or just the product of suggestion and old buildings settling, the belief in the haunting was real and affected how people felt working there. Number 3. The show's cancellation was announced during filming.
In years to come, and if you two move, we're going with you.
At the curtain call, there was a standing ovation from the audience and a request for Balki and Larry's dance of joy one last time.
Perfect Strangers cast and crew learned the show was canceled while in the middle of filming what would become the final season. ABC made the decision without warning Miller Boyett Productions or giving them the opportunity to craft a proper series finale. The news spread through the set during a regular filming day, with crew members hearing from friends at the network before producers were officially informed. The shock and devastation were immediate, with several cast members breaking down on set, years of work and relationships ending suddenly with no preparation or closure. Production shut down for the day as people processed the news, and producers scrambled to figure out what to do. The remaining episodes already filmed would air, but there would be no opportunity to create a satisfying conclusion to 8 years of storytelling. When filming resumed, the atmosphere was funereal, everyone going through the motions while knowing it was all ending. The final episode filmed was a regular installment with no special significance, no acknowledgement that this was goodbye. Cast members tried to make the last day special, taking photos and exchanging gifts, but the absence of a planned finale left everything feeling incomplete and anticlimactic. Mark Lynn-Baker later called the cancellation handling the most unprofessional experience of his career, that after 8 years of loyalty and hard work, ABC couldn't give them the courtesy of advance notice or the chance to end properly. The abrupt cancellation left emotional scars, with cast reunions tinged with melancholy about the ending they never got to create. Number 2. Bronson Pinchot refused to do the reunion.
At a stoplight at Madison Avenue, and someone would just come up and do that.
In the decades after Perfect Strangers ended, there were multiple attempts to create a reunion special or revival series, and every attempt died because Bronson Pinchot refused to participate. Networks offered substantial money, producers begged, Mark Lynn-Baker publicly pleaded, but Pinchot wouldn't even consider it. His reasons evolved over time, but consistently centered on his belief that Perfect Strangers was beneath him, a lowbrow comedy he'd done for money that he wasn't proud of. Pinchot had trained at Yale Drama School and worked with prestigious theater companies before Perfect Strangers, and he viewed the sitcom as a compromise of his artistic integrity that had paid well but damaged his serious actor credentials. Doing a reunion would be compounding that mistake, admitting that the show defined him when he wanted to be known for more substantial work. He particularly resented how Balki had typecast him, making it difficult to get dramatic roles because casting directors only saw the goofy immigrant character. Pinchot's refusal frustrated other cast members who needed the work and wanted closure that the original series hadn't provided. Melanie Wilson publicly criticized Pinchot's selfishness, arguing that he was denying fans and cast members something meaningful because of his ego. But Pinchot never wavered, turning down increasingly large offers right up to the present day. His stubbornness meant that Perfect Strangers remained frozen in time, unable to evolve or continue like other 80s sitcoms that successfully revived decades later. The show that had survived despite Pinchot and Lynn-Baker's mutual hatred couldn't survive Pinchot's post-cancellation rejection of it. Number 1. The show was a ripoff of a British sitcom.
I see, so we're sort of related by rumor. Oh, you have a plan?
Yeah, I have a
You
plan.
have a plan.
Yeah, a good one, too.
No.
Perfect Stranger's entire premise was stolen from a British sitcom called Mind Your Language that had aired in the late 70s. That show featured immigrants from various countries learning English, with comedy derived from cultural misunderstandings and linguistic confusion. Miller Boyett Productions essentially took that concept, removed the classroom setting, added an American cousin, and claimed it as original. The plagiarism was obvious to anyone familiar with both shows, with specific jokes and scenarios lifted almost verbatim from the British source material. The original creators considered legal action, but were advised that proving ownership of broad comedic premises would be difficult and expensive. Instead, they settled for a quiet financial arrangement where Miller Boyett Productions paid ongoing royalties in exchange for the British creators not publicizing the theft. This arrangement was kept secret for decades, with Perfect Strangers presented as wholly original American creation rather than adaptation of existing material. Cast members had no idea they were performing in what was essentially plagiarized content, believing they were creating something new. When the truth eventually emerged through investigative journalism in the 2000s, it recontextualized Perfect Stranger's entire legacy, revealing it as derivative rather than innovative. The show that had seemed fresh and original was actually recycled British comedy repackaged for American audiences who wouldn't recognize the source material. Miller and Boyett never acknowledged the theft publicly, maintaining that any similarities were coincidental despite the financial settlements that proved otherwise. Bonus fact: the apartment building had a dark Hollywood history.
Now, cousin, if there's one thing that this simple mepiot knows... Cousin, the antenna is bending. Come back here. No!
The exterior shots of the building where Balki and Larry lived weren't filmed at a random Chicago location, but at a specific Los Angeles apartment building with notorious Hollywood history. The building at 1800 North Bronson Avenue had been used in dozens of productions since the 1920s, appearing in film noir classics and crime dramas, specifically because its shabby appearance suggested urban decay and danger. What Perfect Strangers producers didn't advertise was that the building had been the site of multiple, real tragedies. 2 murders in the 1940s, a suicide in the 60s, and numerous drug-related incidents throughout the 70s and 80s. By the time Perfect Strangers began filming there in 1986, the building was notorious in Los Angeles as a location where bad things happened, both in fiction and reality. The juxtaposition of using this dark, crime-associated location for a wholesome family sitcom struck some as inappropriate or even disrespectful to the real people who'd suffered there. But the producers chose it purely for economic reasons. It was cheap to film at and already set up with necessary permits and infrastructure from decades of production use. The building's dark history created an ironic contrast with the show's optimistic tone, Balki and Larry's cheerful adventures playing out against a location associated with violence and tragedy. Some crew members reported feeling uncomfortable filming there, aware of the building's past, but their concerns were dismissed as superstition. The building was finally demolished in the late 1990s, its Hollywood history ending along with its physical presence. But it remains visible in Perfect Strangers reruns, its sinister past hidden behind the show's bright, innocent comedy. Perfect Strangers sold heartwarming immigrant success and unbreakable friendship while hiding feuding stars, stolen concepts, and ruthless behind-the-scenes politics. The Dance of Joy was plagiarized, the immigrant character was mockery, and the show survived cancellation only through luck and audience persistence. What seemed innocent was built on professional hatred and creative theft. Subscribe to discover what other feel-good shows were hiding behind their wholesome facades.